Hey, 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 my Be Health Empowered family. Welcome to another episode of Excuse Me, Doctor. My name is Dr. Melissa Clark. Of course, please call me Dr. Mel. I am just excited by the privilege to be with y'all again this week and doing what we do every single week, which is bring you the information that you need to make wise, informed health decisions, not just for yourself, but for your family, your loved ones, and even for your community. So thank you for tuning in. If you are new to our Be Health Empowered family, just tuning in tonight for the first time, please hit us up. Just click on that like button if you like what you hear on Facebook, and subscribe if you're checking us out on YouTube. And remember, we are here for you. So we want you to put all your comments, questions in the chat as we go through all the health topics that we have for you this week. And if you are new, a newbie, of course, welcome. But you should know that I cannot do this show unless I have my two amazing co-hosts with me, which I do this week, and I invite them to come on in to the room. So Lila Mays, Wayne Bruce,
Come on in the room. Come on. Hey, y'all, happy my day.
Bring that gospel flavor. All right, now.
Yeah.
How y'all doing?
Good. How are you, Dr. Mel?
Doing good. It is another start of an amazing week. So I am doing just fine.
It is.
Brother
Brother
Wayne.
Wayne.
Start of a week, and it's an amazing week. So that
Yes,
could be
it
another
is.
start of an amazing week.
Yes, and August is my favorite month of the year. So, here we are.
I wonder
As if we don't know why.
Summertime, and the living is
I
easy.
wonder why.
I wonder why. Could it be someone's? We won't say it.
Look, every August, it means I see another year of life. So, yes, it is
Right.
my favorite month.
It's a great month.
So
Yeah.
we're in Leo season. So, they say Leos, Leos, it's like talking to a brick wall, trying to convince Leos that their birthdays aren't national holidays.
What?
Oh.
What?
Like talking to a brick wall.
I resemble that remark. Well, to all my fellow Leos out there, every day is a national holiday, as far as I'm concerned, for y'all's birthdays. So yes,
Indeed.
So
Indeed. Well, you know what else it is?
What's that?
It's move-in season.
Ah, yes, it is. Dorm time.
For a lot of college students, right? So you got your dorm decor, the laptop, the noise canceling headphones. But have you checked off that health checklist? That's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. I know going off to college, I couldn't wait for the independence part. Staying healthy was the last thing on my mind. I mean,
No.
Let's be honest. For most people, it's about going to IKEA, not the meningitis vaccine.
That is so true.
IKEA. How much
That
stuff can we fit in a Ford Escape?
Right. And cram it to the dorm room.
Right.
But the reality is that, getting ready for college really means more than just picking your major. Both students and their families really need to be ready for everything from prescription refills to mental health support to filling out those campus health forms. So it's a lot to think about.
It is. And honestly, the prep really needs to start way before people are leaving for college, like building emotional resilience, creating boundaries, and having those conversations about sex and relationships.
Right on. That is so true. So we're going to hit on that and more. We're going to hit on recommended vaccinations, managing chronic conditions if you're going away for the first time to school, mental wellness, reproductive health. We got a lot we're going to talk about. And,
And today we got the perfect person for it. We have a university physician who's seen it all, from like missing inhalers, asthma inhalers, to people who forgot to submit the health form, for school.
Right. Exactly. So now's the time for those of you who are watching, stop what you're doing, share this episode with the students who are heading out, their parents and the whole village that's cheering them on. This episode will make sure your young adult is leaving the nest medically and mentally ready.
Yeah. But
Exactly.
but before we do that, we have to go to all the news that has been in the world of health and wellness.
All
The
right, let's
weekly
do it.
recap. In the weekly recap, right?
We gotta get that intern on the music for the recap.
I know, man. The
Like at
intern.
least a drum roll, something.
I mean, something. How about party noise? You know,
Yeah,
applause.
I don't know. That's better. That's better. I was gonna say I am wearing an elephant necklace, but I don't know if that's the right noise. But that one's good. That was good.
Yeah.
All right. So what we got? What we got?
First off,
All right.
Bell, Coach Prime is
Yes.
winning the bladder cancer battle. Talk to us about that. I thought that's wild because I thought bladder cancer was like old man's disease. Like,
No.
Well, actually, bladder cancer does hit older adults more often, and it does hit men more often, actually. But anybody can be affected. And you're right, Deion Sanders just, said, we gonna get through this, and walked off the field with a neo bladder.
hold up.
Okay.
I done heard of neo soul, but I have not heard of a neo bladder.
So basically, it's a brand new bladder that's built from part of your intestine, right? So they sort of re-engineer everything down there and create a bladder after having taken out the one that, of course, was diseased and had cancer. And that's the only way really to stop it from spreading. So that's why the bladder had to be removed. And of course, as you can imagine, because things are rewired and different than before, you actually have to learn how to urinate again, which I imagine was part of his rehab.
Wow. How would you even know that you have bladder cancer? I mean, what are the signs? What kind of tests do we?
Yeah, that's a great question. So sometimes you can actually see blood in your urine. Sometimes blood is in your urine, but it's too small to see. So it might be picked up on just an incidental test. Changes in your urine flow or how often you're going to the bathroom. Pain with urination could also be a symptom, or pain in the low back or low abdomen, or unexplained tiredness or unexplained weight loss. All those are potential signs. They don't always, of course, mean you have bladder cancer, but those might be some of the things you could see if you do have bladder cancer. We know that, or I don't suspect that Deion Sanders had any of these because his bladder cancer was just captured on a routine checkup. He had blood clots in the past, and he had just gone in, just to get the routine checkup, and it was discovered in that way.
Wow. Well, I feel great that the brother is cured because the doctor said he was 100% cured. He's just been such a positive influence in young men's lives. And I guess early detection was the key. And he used the press conference that he was in to really encourage men, and especially Black men, to go get checkups. I mean,
yes, absolutely. And a year ago for Men's Health Month, that's what we did. We had a whole episode on, encouraging Black men to go to the doctor. We talked about prostate cancer screening, the whole 9 yards. So glad that he was able to bring that back to the forefront.
Yeah.
So yay, Coach Prime.
Yay, Coach Prime.
Coach Prime.
God bless Coach Prime. All right. Every little step I take. All right, Dr. Mel, real talk. Is the whole 10,000 steps a day thing actually legit, or is it just fitness tracker hype?
Well, honestly, Lila, it seems like it might be more hype than science, because there's a new study that just came out that confirmed you really don't need 10,000 steps a day to get the serious health benefits. In fact, it looks like closer to about 7,000. So 7,000 steps might be the actual sweet spot.
Child, that's good news. Because some days I'm celebrating if I hit 5,000.
And you're not the only one, but you should celebrate that when you hit 5, and here's why. So many of the big health benefits that happen with more steps seem to happen between 5,000 and 7,000 steps. And beyond that, the gains are small. So you can continue to push for the 10,000, but you're not going to get that many more incremental gains by getting to 10,000. 7,000 steps a day can cut your risk of dying by nearly 50% as compared to just getting 2,000 steps a day. Plus, it lowers your chance of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer that we just finished talking about, dementia, depression, and even the risk of falls. So 7,000 steps, sweet spot, lots of benefits.
Okay, so bottom line, no need to stress about the 10,000. Sounds like if you get there, great, but 5 to 7,000 is much more manageable as a goal, and that's great for all of us trying to stay well.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So Nightmare on Cheese Elm Street. Cue the scary music. Hold on. I can't cue the scary music. There's no scary music to cue.
I think we got the idea though.
So cue the scary music. Look. So I read that those late night grilled cheese sandwiches might be giving people nightmares. Is that true?
Well, your mother and father always did say don't eat too close to your bedtime because you might get the nightmares. However, research is actually backing up specifically the thing about the cheese, because it turns out that people that are lactose intolerant, which we know happens more in populations of African and Asian descent, do seem to get gastrointestinal issues, so like gas, bloating, or pain that can trigger disturbing dreams. And it does seem that there is a correlation. And dairy and sweets were at the top of the list when it came to foods that were associated with bad dreams. So, a step further beyond the grilled cheese sandwich might be the need to avoid cheesecake, because that combines sugar and dairy. So you might want, or ice cream. So you might want to not eat that too close to bedtime.
So I don't know about nightmares, but you definitely will give your partner nightmares if you're lactose intolerant and you pull up the covers. I'm just saying, and trap them in those covers after being lactose intolerant. You will give yourself nightmares, your partner nightmares as well.
Wayne Bruce relationship advice.
Hey,
thank you.
So if somebody wants sweet dreams, they should stay away from the cheesecake and hit the chamomile tea.
That is true. Yes.
Listen,
go ahead.
If you are eating a grilled cheese sandwich and then going to sleep, you deserve to be on Elm Street. Okay.
So
that's my opinion.
And if you're gonna do the dairy, you might want to just do it in the daytime. So we'll leave it at that.
Daytime dairy.
Crazy. Daytime
Nighttime,
dairy.
no dairy.
If you are eating a hunk of cheesecake or a grilled cheese sandwich before you go to sleep, whatever comes up in your spirit is what
it comes out of your spirit.
Okay.
Because you will definitely have some stuff coming out of your spirit, and you might not get the bad dreams. But I guarantee you, your partner who sleeps with you gonna have a bad dream.
It's gonna be a bad night for somebody.
We're just gonna need to open a relationship corner.
They're gonna be stuck in a volcano. They're gonna dream in a volcano. Nothing but heat and gas. Okay. Anyway, so that leads us to
the weekly debunk.
Wait.
Stopping misinformation in its tracks.
Bonita Bama said, I saw on TikTok skin cancer has increased by over 200% since the introduction of sunscreen. Like, wait, what?
I don't know about that. Excuse me, Dr. Bell, is that true?
No. And I hate to answer a question with a question, but just walk with me here. So,
okay.
Since more people have been eating kale salad, which was started around 15 years ago, the rate of colon cancer has increased. So would you say that banning kale salad would lead to decreased colon cancer rates? I would hope not. Just because two things occur at the same time or in parallel with each other does not mean that one is causing the other. That's the difference between correlation, meaning they're happening in parallel, versus causation, meaning one is causing the other. So, no, it doesn't mean that because of the introduction of sunscreen that it's causing skin cancer. People that want to sell you things on TikTok or other social media platforms, like their own natural sunscreens, right, might want to lead you to believe that the two are related and one is causing the other. But they're, in honesty, the reason for the rise in skin cancer rates are because of the increased popularity of sunbathing and skin tanning beds, changes in fashion trends, so people wearing fewer clothes, so covering less skin, better cancer detection, so more, knowledge about skin cancer and going into the doctor and getting checked, and just people living longer, so there's longer time for skin cancer to develop. So just be careful out there on social media, as always, because wild claims are everywhere, and you want to make sure that you fact check them, talk to your doctor, go to reputable medical sites for your information.
Always.
All right. Well, thank you all. We're gonna see you back in a little bit, but we're gonna jump right into our show tonight and bring on our amazing guest. So, of course, heading off to college is a huge milestone for students and their parents. But beyond all the shopping and the IKEA runs and all that, the essential thing that gets overlooked a lot of times is a student's health. So, on today's show, we are going to sit down with Dr. Ebony Copeland. She is the director of student health of the student health services at Howard University Hospital. At Howard University, the Mecca. She is also an assistant professor in the Department of Community and Family Medicine at the Howard University College of Medicine. She specializes in adolescent medicine, and she's devoutly committed to reproductive health care and addressing health disparities, especially for our young people. So welcome, Dr. Copeland. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Mel. I'm glad to be here.
Wonderful. So let's just start here. I know that you have, prior to coming to Howard University, you headed up a really vital community health center in New York. You now are at Howard. What really drives your passion for adolescent health, or teenagers' health of young people, and community health?
So I've always loved dealing with adolescents and young adults. I always tell people if I wasn't going to be a physician, I probably would have been a high school teacher. I think that why I love this population as it relates to health is partially because of my public health background. I believe that adolescents and young adults are the perfect demographic for behavioral implementation and change. So you don't have to change behaviors if you start good behaviors, right? And so oftentimes you're sitting down with somebody 45 plus, even 30 plus, who've been doing the same thing, eating the same things, coping the same ways. And it's difficult to change those habits. Whereas with adolescents and young adults, if you can have those conversations very early, and I always tell providers, don't expect them to magically change in that conversation, but you're also planting the seeds. So if you can plant the seeds of exercise and what that can benefit from you, that's something that even if they stray away from it when life gets stressful, they can come back to it, as opposed to someone who now has some new chronic medical diagnosis and you're asking them to exercise and they literally never have. So for me, I really feel like you can make the most impact in people's health longevity in adolescence and the young adult stages of their lives.
Wow, that makes perfect sense. And so as young people transition now, going from high school off to college, and now that you might be seeing them at the student health services, what are some of the surprises that people are having when it comes to health as they enter into college, or misunderstandings, things that they weren't prepared for?
I think that this is just in general, but young people we're seeing a lot more is the impact of stress on their bodies. So I don't think that young people really realize how badly stress can have a negative impact on their body. That's one thing that they're surprised with. They come in with all these physical complaints, and then when you get down to it and it's like, yeah, this sounds like stress, anxiety, and they're some oftentimes taken aback, and the way they feel is real, and it may cause them to be sick. Like if you have high cortisol levels and your immune system is compromised, it makes you more susceptible to getting sick, all of those things. And so I think one of the things students are surprised by, one is their stress levels, and two, how that stress is impacting their body. And that can be in a variety of ways. It can be in menstrual changes. It can be in palpitations. It can be in headaches. It could be in sleep. Yeah, all of the things that, they are not actually contributing to the root cause.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And, I always say mental health and resilience, emotional resilience is really the foundation, right? Because as you said, it can lead, not being prepared for that stress or how to manage it can lead to physical problems as well as performance problems, right? So it's really the roots. I'm glad that we're starting there. How would you say that parents could help students build emotional resilience and know when to reach out for help when their parents are no longer there day to day?
So I think the building of resilience starts well before you're in the car on the way to college. So it's something that starts very, very early. It comes with responsibility. It comes with trying and failing, all of the things that I think it feels like this new generation tries to shield their children from oftentimes. And so they feel like they're trying to protect them, but oftentimes what they're doing is disabling them from developing resilience, right? And so you need to allow your children to try, and that inevitably is not always going to be a success. Everything that we do is not going to always go how we need to. And that's how you develop the ability to adjust, the ability to do things differently. Oftentimes, the students come and they're surrounded by super smart people. So you go from being the smartest to being around everybody who's smart. And Howard University has a medical school. So especially the professional students, medical students, they really struggle with that, right? Because usually those are the top tier students. Now it's all top tier students. And you may not be at the top of the top tier students. And so you've done
you're no
things.
Longer the big fish in the little, you're no longer the big fish in the little pond.
Exactly. And so you've done things the same way. Parents have put bumpers around everything. And so now you're literally having to navigate everything on your own, redo your patterns, learn how to study a different way, learn how to study without your mother there to tell you have to study when there's a party going on or there's something else going on, or balancing all of the things that may be happening, and two finals at this time. And it's just very, very different. And so that is something that starts very, very early, is really instilling a sense of confidence. I think that oftentimes as parents have done better for themselves, they don't want their kids to struggle in the ways in which they have. And that's great. But at the same time, there just has to be some way that you're very intentional about building up their confidence, that they can handle anything that may come their way, that they can adjust. And if they haven't had to do that and they don't have the tools, which we're seeing a lot more of, college can really be difficult.
Yeah. And so you mentioned seeing young people in student health service with signs of stress. How can parents or just the students themselves know what to look for, especially in those first few weeks, that might indicate anxiety or might indicate depression or other mental health concerns?
So I think that kind of having a baseline of your communication with your students and or your children and how you all usually communicate. And if there's big changes in that. Now, granted, when they go to school, ideally they're going to be a little bit more social. They may not be talking to you 3 or 4 times a day. But if you have talked on a daily basis and all of a sudden that's no longer happening, so, or when you're talking to your student, if they seem to be isolating, they're not engaging, they can't tell you about anything that they've done that's extracurricular. So I think that for parents listening for the students isolating, being overwhelmed, those are the kind of red flags that the student may be struggling. If the student literally is like, no, every time you talk to them, they're like, I'm studying, then, that's usually a sign actually that, they're having difficulties with the rigors of the program that they're in. And then if you're communicating with them less than usual or more than usual, those are signs where a parent should be like, okay, what's happening here? Why are you calling me more now than you would? Because there are also students who get very homesick. We have students who come from all over the world to go to Howard University. And so they get there. DC is a city. Howard is in the city. And then you have students who come from big cities and they get to a smaller campus or in, a rural area, and they struggle with a college town. So just that adjustment can often be very difficult. And then dealing with students who are very different than you, or students who seem to just already have everything figured out, and then you feel intimidated by the fact that you're just getting there, just trying to learn the landscape, and other students are like running for student body president 2 weeks in, and things like that. So I think that having a baseline, and you and the child understanding your baseline, and then monitoring alterations in that. And I think the biggest thing that will happen though is the isolation, is noticing that they're not engaging socially as much as you would expect for a new college student, or even a upperclassman.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. And I want to bring in another topic that, just like you mentioned around emotional resilience, really requires cultivating conversations with your young person way before they leave for college. And that's their reproductive health, right? Which I know is your area of specialty. So what should college students understand about consent, contraception, and safe sexual practices before arriving on campus?
They should understand everything. But no, I mean, ideally parents will have had conversations about sex with their child. The potential of it happening, even if your child is not sexually active, you are sending them to an institution and they're going to be there for 4 years. Yes, they'll come home for breaks, and yes, they'll come home for summers, but they are now at a stage of independence. And you want to have conversations about enthusiastic yes, with males and females. It's important to have conversations with these young men, especially men of color. You don't ever want to be in a situation where there's a question of if there was consent. So that's a conversation that needs to be had with young men before they go off to college, which also means being in your right mind. So engaging when you're intoxicated, whether that's with drugs or alcohol, also clouds judgment. And so you can't always necessarily say that somebody has consented if they're not sober. Having those conversations about that, having conversations about healthy relationships. I think especially now with online relationships, which a lot of parents aren't as familiar with, really equipping what we're seeing a lot of times is people think they know people based off their online relationships, although they have not met them in person. So that first meeting still should not be one-on-one. Those safety things, like that should still be a public, how when we were younger, it's like maybe you want your first date to be a group date. Or something along those
Somewhere
lines.
very public. Don't have people coming to your house and pick you up, all that safety stuff. Yeah.
Right. But that line gets really grayed when we're talking about online relationships, because they will have engaged with this person for potentially long periods of time and really feel like they know them, and potentially put themselves in unsafe situations. So really having conversations about what the potentials are, what to do, how to have protected sex, what is birth control, when do you need to get on birth control? What are those conversations? If you have a son or a daughter that you know is in a same-sex relationship, how do you protect yourself in that way from sexually transmitted infections? All of these things can change the trajectory of your college course. If you end up with a mistimed pregnancy, or you end up with a sexually transmitted infection that is not curable. So I think a lot of times parents tend to shy away from it, but you want that conversation to be with the parent and not with the peer, because oftentimes there's falsehoods in the conversations that are being had between two 17-year-olds and a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old, right? So you as the adult really should have those conversations about what it looks like to navigate safely in every way. Like, again, with substances, with intimate relationships, and what those things should look like.
Right. And then also to set protection, and whether it be from STIs or from pregnancy. If you could comment on that, especially vis-a-vis what might be available at a student health at student health centers in general. I know you can't speak for all of them, but yeah.
Yes. I'm gonna, Alexa, turn on the sun. Sorry. The sun has gone down since we started. But so the most student health centers, whether it's housed on campus or it's contracted with someone else, should provide most of the basic reproductive health rights, or needs. So STI testing, and then standard contraception. Now, that does vary though, especially in religious institutions. So there are certain religious institutions where it actually is difficult to get birth control. So some of the Catholic institutions, but there's also oftentimes, even within that, workarounds and co-diagnoses that would warrant birth control outside of just pregnancy prevention. But most college student health centers can provide you, at the very least, birth control pills, Depo-Provera, the pill patch ring. Now it varies on some of the longer acting birth control options like IUDs or the implant, the Nexplanon. We provide everything at Howard, but again, that just varies on the provider's, comfort and skill set. But most institutions, and if they're relatively large or medium size, will be able to provide you with all of the options for birth control. And then protective measures from STIs, condoms, both internal and external. PrEP services, lots of institutions have implemented providing PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is prevention from STIs. And now some places that are progressive provide DoxyPep, which is, PrEP is preventative for HIV. DoxyPep is preventative from other bacterial infections. So you can give them doxycycline, they can take it and hopefully prevent getting an STI if they're exposed. So,
and for people that are used to STDs, STI stands for sexually transmitted infection. So
yes, yes, STIs, STDs, yes. So, so most universities have those resources. We really try to see students as soon as they get on campus and let them know, because you don't want them to be looking for it when it's time and there's a crisis. But oftentimes it's hard. They're not paying attention to the health stuff.
Yeah, so you mentioned Catholic universities. What if you're going to a Catholic university in a state where abortion or reproductive health is under fire? Let me say that. Are there things that a young person can do ahead of time, say maybe before they leave their home state, to make themselves ready?
Absolutely. I think that in this political climate that we are in and the vast variety of reproductive health rights, that's something that people should be paying attention to before they send their, especially female or cisgendered female daughters, or trans male daughters, or trans male sons. So anyone who has the potential to be pregnant, they need to consider all of those things, and especially if you have a trans child, where you are sending them, and that homework needs to be done at where they can get the services and care that they need to continue. As far as pregnancy prevention, that is something where you may want to consider an IUD or an implant, because then you don't have to worry about it. You've given them something that will last the duration of their college experience, and you don't have to worry about that. And so when I worked in the Bronx, that was often something that happened when young women were going off to college. That's when they would come in to get some sort of long acting birth control. So I do think that if you're sending your child somewhere that may have more restrictive reproductive health rights, you should try everything in your power to make sure that they're set before they go. If they're on the pill, you can get 90 days. That way, when they come home for Thanksgiving, they can get another ideally 90-day refill as well, so that they don't have to try to navigate that while they're there. So any of the health needs, people really need to think about making it as seamless as possible for the students to be able to maintain.
And along those lines, when we talk about preparation for medication in general, people that have chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, ADHD, how should parents and students coordinate with the student health center at their school if the student has like ongoing health issues and needs medication management or just ongoing care?
Yeah, so I always encourage, especially not always the asthma. So my recommendation for students with asthma who have ever had asthma, not if they actively have asthma, but if they've ever had asthma, is that they should come to college with a rescue inhaler. I strongly believe that, because again, people are going into totally different environments, totally different allergens. You and I are both in the district DMV area. The allergens here are like nowhere I've ever lived. So these people come like thinking, oh, I haven't used an inhaler in forever, and 2 weeks into the school year, they're like, I don't know what's happening, right?
Right, I can't breathe, right, exactly. Or just
So
stress, to your point, just the new stress. Even if they're not going to a place that has a lot of allergens, that in and of itself could trigger asthma attack. Yeah.
Exactly. So I definitely think that people with history of asthma should come with a pump. And especially if they are actively using medications, then they definitively need to have a pump. But any chronic illnesses, the students need to come with their medications. If it is possible for them to get a 90-day supply, I recommend a 90-day supply. When I was primary care in the Bronx and I was sending students off to college, I tried to make sure that I could hold them over until they came back for another visit or they came back from a break. So that really is what I would recommend. And then also trying to tie them into a pharmacy that's local. If it's CVS or Walgreens, that's not difficult at all. If they have some of the chronic illnesses like sickle cell, type 1 diabetes, that's when we need, like, you should connect with the student health center in an effort to try to get a local specialist, because you don't want to wait until something has happened to be trying to get that done. As we all know, trying to get into specialists is never quick. It always takes some time. So I always, when I'm doing orientations with parents, I'm like, okay, send us the information. We can at least generate referrals so that you can start, so that we can get you plugged in, so that if anything happens, especially the sickle cell students, because oftentimes they're just suffering, and they don't, and especially because sickle cell patients, have been in the system for a very long time. They generally have a very tight bond with their home team, their home medical team. They don't really want to go anywhere else if they can hold out till they can get home for their breaks or whatever. But it is really critical, even if you don't need that touch point, to have it before you need it. So I really recommend for those who have any sort of complicated, and not even just complicated, but chronic illnesses that require oversight, or if you're checking in with a doctor for any regular basis, if it's 6 months, annually, every 3 months, then definitely plug into the student health center so that you can get a referral for a local specialist.
So one other thing I know that requires preparation is vaccinations, right? In this, again, policy environment where a lot of people are anti-vax, there are recommended vaccines for adolescents, especially before they go away to college. So can you hit on some of those that really parents should make sure that their children are up to date on, or recommended that they be up to date on before they go away?
Yeah, so most universities are going to require you to have measles, mumps, rubella, MMR, varicella, hepatitis B, tetanus, and meningococcal. Those are the ones for sure that those are the standard that most universities are going to recommend for you to have. I highly recommend that you have all of them. The one that actually, being a college student and living in a dorm, you are at higher risk for is the meningococcal vaccine. So definitively, for students who are coming on campuses and living in dorms and close quarters, they should have a meningitis vaccine after the age of 16. Because sometimes they get that first one and then they haven't been back for a while and they tend to miss that second dose. In addition to that, they should have both meningitis vaccines. So there's the traditional one, MenACWY, that, Menactra is the brand name that often people use. But meningitis B vaccine, most of the most recent campus outbreaks or campus incidents of meningitis has been Men B. So they need both after the age of 16. Right. I strongly recommend those.
And for people, I'm sure most folks listening know meningitis. It's a very deadly brain infection. Right. You literally can get it and within hours be in a coma and then shortly thereafter die. So it's super important, everything that Dr. Copeland just said around making sure that you're up to date on that. And that age group is sort of the sweet spot for meningitis, unfortunately.
And that one is one, because we require it for housing, that, parents go back and forth with me, and I'm like, I think it's hard. The public does not understand, like, meningitis is not measles, mumps, rubella, varicella. You don't have time. Yeah. Once you get it, as an ER
emergency physician,
yeah, it is. Yep. There's no time. And if you do survive, you usually have some sort of long-standing deficit, whether that's hearing loss, mental impairment, vision, they're just so.
So it's best just to get vaccinated.
Yeah. And then the other one that's not required, but I highly recommend, again, reproductive health, is HPV. So, a lot of times parents have been reticent about getting HPV vaccine, and they're not sexually active and this, that, and the other. And I've always had the argument of, we never know what can happen to us, and you would not want to be exposed to your daughter or son to be exposed to something, and they could have been protected,
Right.
So
that could cause cancer, essentially. That can cause cervical cancer. Yeah. Exactly.
Cervical cancer, HPV, which, can lead to other types of cancer, HPV, like warts. People don't realize that the HPV vaccine is protective against genital warts. That's why we've seen such a massive decrease in genital warts as well. So, it's really important. So it's not required usually on college campuses, but it's one that I highly recommend.
Wow. Thank you. I can't believe it is already time to go to the audience for questions. I know that they have questions. Lila and Wayne, if y'all could come on back in, let us know what's going on in the chat, what people are asking, what's on people's minds. Hey.
Hey, well, I just lost my Facebook connection, but I did get a text with a comment that I thought was really interesting about my goddaughter who goes back to school in a couple of weeks. And her mom says she was getting an A+ until you brought up the inhaler for folks who have ever had asthma. So that's something that didn't go with her to school the first year, but something that's going to go back with her when she goes back in a couple of weeks.
Wonderful.
Yes, so that was really useful information. You have a question, Wayne? I have one.
Go ahead.
So Dr. Copeland, you've trained and worked in community settings across the country from the Bronx to DC. What are the mental health trends are you seeing among college students, especially those from underserved communities? Is that loaded?
It's not loaded. It's
okay.
Of course, we're seeing increased anxiety and depression, but we've had these conversations often on campus that it's not always, it is anxiety, they're anxious and they're depressed, but it is actually a lack of coping skills. So it is the resilience, like we talked about before, that it is and I have seen it more in the college students actually than the kids in the Bronx. Because if you grew up in the Bronx, you're resilient. Like that's it comes with your environment, right? So New York City kids are resilient by virtue of, their environment. But being in this collegiate space, again, where I think that as we advance and especially I think people of color, we really don't want our kids to have the struggles that we have. But there's a balance between, struggle and, again, learning how to pick yourself up and, things don't go your way and how to adjust and do better. And that's really what we're seeing is that they just are not managing their stress well. They're just not managing their stress well. They don't manage setbacks well. They don't manage that they failed a test. They don't manage that they broke up with a boyfriend or girlfriend. They don't manage that, it's these situational things that just spiral out because they don't have the tools to adjust and manage them. That's what we're seeing a lot of, and just trying to figure that out because again, they're here. So they're in college and trying to develop those types of that skill set is challenging because college is challenging. Like the whole thing from the beginning to the end, it is hard. Like if it wasn't hard, everybody would do it, so it's really not the place to develop those skills. You should come.
You want to come prepared
with that ability to do that. And that's really what we're seeing is just they're not emotionally, they're all smart, but they're not emotionally prepared for the vicissitudes of higher education.
Right.
Okay. So we have a question from Yvonne, and it's a combined question because I have a question also. So it's two-parter. Do boys need HPV vaccine?
Yes.
Yes.
Everyone needs an HPV vaccine. Girls get HPV from boys.
Right.
Okay.
So everyone needs HPV. If everybody is vaccinated, everybody is protected.
And they don't want. And they don't
we're
want.
Not just gonna go with the binary. Whether cis, trans,
all
on
human,
the spectrum,
all human students.
Everybody needs
all human
an
students.
HPV vaccine.
Right.
Yes.
So also you mentioned PrEP and the as a something that they may use, and I know from the TV commercials that it's generally revolves around HIV, but you mentioned other sex STIs that may be stopped because of the PrEP. Can you go into that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. So there's pre-exposure prophylaxis, which again, usually that's known for HIV, which is what it is for. And so, there are multiple modalities for that now. At this point, there are pills, which has been the longstanding PrEP, but now there's injectables. So one just got approved for a Q6-month injectant. So a shot twice a year. And that will prevent you from getting HIV if exposed. And the studies on that particular medication are amazing as far as preventing HIV. There is also something called DoxyPEP, which is if you are exposed or you have an unprotected sex and you take doxycycline after the exposure, it decreases the likelihood of you acquiring bacterial infections like chlamydia and gonorrhea. So you can decrease the likelihood of that. And that one's not as, it's known, but it's not as, I don't think it's known as much in the general public. But so there are multiple ways in which you can prevent yourself from potentially acquiring STIs. The other thing that I think people under talk about, though, is PEP for HIV. So if you do have a encounter that you are worried about, you can also come in to the doctors. I mean, Dr. Mel is very familiar with this because we use it a lot with assault, but you can use it otherwise. If you have had an unprotected encounter that you are very concerned about, you can get on a course of HIV medications that could potentially prevent you from acquiring HIV. And that has to be done within 72 hours of the encounter. So we don't really talk about that often as a protective measure as well, but that's something also that people can do if they're not on PrEP and they're like, this something, you getting that feeling like this is something was not right.
So 72 hours, you can go to your student health center, you can go to urgent care, you can make an appointment with your doctor if it's within 72 hours. All those options are available.
Dr. Copeland. So, sometimes college is the first time that folks are really getting access to a whole bunch of things, right? We don't know what their socioeconomic situation has been. Sometimes getting to school on a scholarship or however they've gotten there is really their first opportunity to sort of take care of themselves and their health. So what would be your advice? What would be your advice to those folks who are now in school and managing their health independently for the first time? How can they build their confidence and advocate for themselves?
So I think you are correct. What I would say is that don't skirt around getting health insurance. So a lot of times that's an extra cost that people don't want to pay. And you should pay for it because, again, it gives you that agency to then freely access and explore all of the things that you need to feel safe and healthy within your body. And so it really feels like a heavy lift, especially for those who come from underserved backgrounds, to pay that extra $1,000 per semester, $2,000. In some schools, it's way more than that. Some schools it's less. But I do encourage everyone, get whatever accessible insurance there is for the school, and then go to your health center, go get a physical. Most of the time we realize that young people are not getting physicals. They're healthy, they don't feel like they need to. I mean, I don't think I got a physical in my 20s at all. So I mean, come in, get a physical. And I can't say that every space is going to be great, but oftentimes student health centers are going to be probably the kindest clinics you're going to go to for the rest of your medical journey. There are people who are committed to taking care of young people. They're skilled at it. And so when I was in the Bronx, my whole goal was to give people agency to demand and request the things that they needed from their providers. So creating that comfort space, and that's one of the things that I really try to do. And one of the reasons I'm at Howard, because as people of color, we have to advocate for ourselves. And so I teach my staff, I'm like, all these students who are going to come in here at some point in their medical journeys are probably going to be treated unfairly in some way, and that won't start here. What will start here is the advocacy, teaching them how to advocate for the things that they need, so that when they know the service and expectation that they should have when they go beyond Howard University.
Love that.
I do too. That's what I was going to say, Dr. Mel. I love that.
Yeah, and you're on the right show, because Excuse Me Doctor is all about how to advocate for yourself and what you need to know so that you can advocate for yourself. So that's beautiful.
Right. Yeah. And it's a safer way to navigate the healthcare system, because it's kinder, right? You can be late a little bit. You can, like, people are going to work with you a little bit more. That's not how it works in the real world. And I tell them, like, we're going to try to see you, but, like, just so you know, this is not how it rolls. This is not how
we roll, right?
Yeah. So, it's our job to teach them. That's what my staff knows. It's our job to teach them how to navigate the healthcare system, and college really is an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Are there bridge policies for health insurance? And that we're in the lightning round there.
What do you mean by bridge policies?
Like policies that are carried from their parent.
So it depends on the campus. So some universities make you get their plan. Most universities, though, it's a waiver. So if you have adequate insurance and under your parents' plan, you can stay on your parents' plan.
Okay.
If it's not adequate, or it's out of state, usually if it's an out of state Medicaid, Medicare plan, those don't actually cover you in another state for the primary care type needs. So you would probably be required to opt into your university's plan.
But if you had Medicaid and you're going to school in the state where you have Medicaid, generally that should be okay.
Keep it. Yeah, you should be fine. You should be able to keep it. And like Howard will take DC, Maryland, and Virginia.
Oh, good.
One other lightning round question is medical forms. What should parents and kids know about filling out those forms?
Fill them out, please. So I think one of the challenges is that now that everything is digital, a lot of times the information goes straight to the student and the parents don't see it. So that's a double-edged sword, because back in the day when probably all of us were going to school, our stuff was paper and our parents could look at our folder and go through the checklist and see the checklist. And so a lot of times the parents, now sometimes it's the extreme where the parent the email is going straight to the parent, the kids know nothing. Like, it needs to be a balance. So parents, you need to actually put eyes on their students' email addresses and go through those emails. Don't do it for them. But know what it is that you're supposed to be doing. Because they come every year. We start moving tomorrow. They're going to show up all hot, and we're going to be like, I mean, they've had 5 emails that have told them that this things they need to get done. So I think that it's really challenging with the way places operate and going straight to the student. So what I would say is that the parent definitely, it's a balance.
You got to take a look at it. Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much,
Doc.
So unfortunately, we're at time. I want to thank you, Dr. Copeland. You were amazing. Thank you, of course, Wayne and Lila. Thank you to the Be Health Empowered family for the great questions and for being a part of the show. Love that you were here. And until I see you next time, remember, everybody, be wise, be well, and be health empowered.